She was once the biggest pop star on the planet. Her songs dominated radio stations across the world. Her music videos broke records. Her concerts sold out within minutes. For years, it seemed impossible to escape the colorful world of Katy Perry, but fame is rarely as perfect as it appears. Behind the chart-topping hits, the dazzling costumes, and the global success was a story filled with rejection, controversy, personal struggles, and one of the most dramatic career transformations in modern pop culture. This is the story of Katy Perry, the rise, the challenges, and the reinvention of a pop icon. Long before she became known as Katy Perry, she was born Catherine Elizabeth Hudson on October 25, 1984, in Santa Barbara, California. She grew up in a deeply religious household. Her parents were Pentecostal pastors, and religion played a major role in her childhood. Unlike many future pop stars, Katy's early life was far from glamorous. Secular music was largely discouraged in her home. Instead of listening to mainstream artists, she was surrounded by gospel music and church culture. Yet, even as a child, she displayed a natural passion for singing. Family members quickly recognized her talent. By her teenage years, she dreamed of building a career in music. But there was one major problem. The music she wanted to create was very different from the world in which she had been raised. At just 15 years old, Katy signed her first recording contract. She released a gospel album under her birth name, Katy Hudson. The project represented her first major opportunity. Unfortunately, it was a commercial disaster. The album sold very few copies. The record label eventually collapsed. For most young artists, such a failure could have ended the dream completely. But Katy refused to quit. She moved to Los Angeles and started over. It was a risky decision. She had little money, no guaranteed success, and faced constant rejection. Record labels showed interest but repeatedly dropped her before releasing any music. Years passed. Opportunities appeared and disappeared. Friends and industry insiders began questioning whether her big break would ever come. Yet Katy remained determined. She believed success was still possible. She simply needed the right song. In 2008, everything changed. Katy released a controversial new single called I Kissed a Girl. The song immediately sparked debate. Some critics attacked its lyrics. Others praised its boldness, but controversy only fueled curiosity. The song exploded globally. Within months, Katy Perry became an international sensation. Suddenly, the struggling singer who had spent years fighting for recognition was one of the most talked about artists in the world. Her debut mainstream album, One of the Boys, produced additional hits and introduced audiences to her playful personality. The transformation was remarkable. Only a few years earlier, she had been facing rejection after rejection. Now, she was a global star, and this was only the beginning. If I Kissed a Girl introduced Katy Perry to the world, her next album turned her into a superstar. In 2010, she released Teenage Dream. The album became a cultural phenomenon. Songs like California Girls, Firework, E.T., Last Friday Night, and Teenage Dream dominated charts across the globe. The success was historic. 5 singles from the album reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Only one other artist had previously achieved that milestone. Katy Perry was no longer simply a successful singer. She had become one of the defining pop stars of her generation. Her colorful style, candy-themed visuals, and upbeat music made her instantly recognizable. Brands wanted partnerships. Award shows wanted performances. Fans wanted more. At the peak of her fame, it seemed as though everything she touched became a success. But behind the scenes, maintaining that level of popularity came with enormous pressure. As her career soared, Katy's personal life became headline news. One of her most publicized relationships was with British comedian and actor Russell Brand. The pair married in 2010. To fans, they appeared happy and deeply in love. But the marriage quickly faced difficulties. After only 14 months, the relationship ended. The divorce became international news. Katy later revealed that the breakup had a profound emotional impact on her life. The experience influenced much of her future music. Songs dealing with heartbreak, loss, and recovery resonated strongly with listeners because they reflected genuine pain. While fans saw glamorous red carpet appearances, Katy was struggling privately. The pressures of fame and personal disappointment were beginning to take their toll. Following the historic success of Teenage Dream, Katy Perry found herself in a position that very few artists ever reach. She had become one of the biggest names in global pop music, and expectations surrounding her career were higher than ever. Every new song was measured against her previous hits. Every album release became a major event. Critics, fans, and industry experts closely watched her every move. When Katy released Prism in 2013, she proved that her success was not a temporary phenomenon. The album produced massive hits such as Roar and Dark Horse, both of which dominated charts around the world and became defining songs of the decade. These successes reinforced her reputation as one of the most influential pop stars of her generation. However, maintaining that level of dominance was becoming increasingly difficult. The music industry moves quickly, and trends can change almost overnight. New artists constantly emerge. Social media reshapes how audiences discover music, and public tastes evolve with each passing year. For Katy, the challenge was no longer becoming famous. She had already accomplished that. The real challenge was remaining relevant in an industry that rarely stands still. For several years, she successfully balanced both goals. Yet, as the landscape of pop music began shifting, new obstacles started appearing on the horizon. By the late 2010s, the narrative surrounding Katy Perry had begun to change. For nearly a decade, she had been one of the most dominant forces in pop music, consistently producing hit singles and setting industry records. But as trends shifted and new artists emerged, some critics began questioning whether her formula was still connecting with audiences in the same way. The turning point came with the release of Witness in 2017. While the album performed respectably and generated significant media attention, reactions were mixed. Some fans appreciated her attempt to explore new themes and sounds, while others felt the project lacked the magic that had defined her earlier successes. For the first time in years, discussions about Katy Perry focused less on her achievements and more on what she might do next. Media outlets began publishing stories questioning whether her reign at the top of pop music was coming to an end. Online criticism intensified, and every interview, performance, and public appearance seemed to be analyzed through a more skeptical lens. The internet, once a powerful tool in building her popularity, became a source of constant scrutiny. Katy later admitted that this period was emotionally difficult. After spending years celebrated as a pop icon, adjusting to criticism and changing public opinion proved to be one of the greatest challenges of her career. Instead of retreating completely, Katy chose a different path. She focused on personal growth. She became more open about mental health. She discussed the emotional realities of fame. Fans saw a more vulnerable side of her personality. In many ways, she was no longer trying to recreate the image that had made her famous years earlier. She was attempting to build something new. This period also brought positive developments in her personal life. Her relationship with actor Orlando Bloom attracted widespread attention. The couple eventually became engaged and welcomed a daughter together. For Katy, family became an increasingly important priority. Her definition of success was evolving. As the music industry continued to evolve, Katy Perry recognized that long-term success required more than simply releasing hit songs. While she remained active as a recording artist and performer, she began expanding her career into new areas that would introduce her to entirely different audiences. One of her most significant moves came when she joined American Idol as a judge. The role allowed millions of viewers to see a side of Katy that went beyond colorful stage performances and chart-topping singles. Instead of being the artist in the spotlight, she became a mentor helping aspiring singers pursue their own dreams. Audiences witnessed her sense of humor, emotional side, and willingness to share lessons from her own experiences in the entertainment industry. At the same time, Katy continued building her business empire. She expanded her endorsement deals, launched new entrepreneurial ventures, and explored opportunities outside traditional music projects. These efforts demonstrated a growing understanding of how to remain relevant in an industry where fame can disappear quickly. Many artists struggle to reinvent themselves after reaching the peak of their careers. Some become trapped by their past success. Katy chose a different path. Rather than chasing the past, she focused on growth, adaptation, and creating a new chapter that extended far beyond music alone. Today, Katy Perry's story is about far more than chart records, sold-out tours, and hit singles. It is a story of resilience, a story of persistence in the face of failure, rejection, and intense public scrutiny. While millions know her as one of the biggest pop stars of the 21st century, her journey to success was far from easy. Very few people remember the teenage gospel singer whose first album failed to make an impact. Even fewer remember the years she spent struggling in Los Angeles, signing record deals only to be dropped before releasing any music. For a long time, success seemed just out of reach. What most people remember are the blockbuster albums, the colorful performances, and the songs that dominated radio stations around the world. They remember the spectacle, the fame, and the larger-than-life image that made Katy Perry a global phenomenon. But those achievements tell only part of the story. Behind the headlines was a woman who repeatedly reinvented herself whenever circumstances demanded it. Through personal heartbreak, career setbacks, and changing public opinion, she continued moving forward. And perhaps that is Katy Perry's greatest legacy. Not simply the records she broke or the fame she achieved, but her determination to keep evolving, adapting, and persevering when success was no longer guaranteed. From a strict religious upbringing to global superstardom, from record-breaking success to public criticism, from personal heartbreak to personal growth, Katy Perry's journey remains one of the most fascinating stories in modern pop culture. Her career has been filled with extraordinary highs and difficult lows, yet through it all, she continues to evolve. And whether you admire her music, her resilience, or her ability to reinvent herself, one thing is certain: Katy Perry's story is far from over.